No swears were harmed in the making of this video. Singapore made the best thing since sliced bread, the Panama Canal, and beer. It's actually so cool that I made this video about it. Yet, Singapore is so cool, I couldn't do it alone. So I football drafted Aaron into making this video. I'm bringing sexy back.
Welcome to Singapore. This video about Singapore is gonna have an absolute whopper. 12 farts.
Basic facts in geography, historical background, government and political structures, economy and resources, culture and society, education and health, notable landmarks in geography, modern life and technologies, key issues and challenges, recent developments, interesting facts, the beautiful thing that we created.
Singapore would be the name of the country, and the capital of Singapore would be Singapore, which is very clever. Singapore is located on an island in the Southeast Asia. It will be still is, water's still there. It's surrounded by the water of Singapore Strait, which is another very unique name. The coastline that borders Singapore is Malaysia in the north and Indies in the south. The island is about 284 square miles, which is not very big. It's actually pretty small. Actually, Singapore is the smallest country in Asia and one of the smallest in the world overall. Yet, size isn't what matters. It's how many people live in it. Yeah, and Singapore has a gigantic, massive population for its size. Singapore has around 6 million people, with most of the population being Chinese, and that's 75.5%. And Malaysia has 15.1%, and then 7.6% is Indian people. But then also sprinkle in a couple other people from other cultures, and that basically makes up Singapore.
Singapore would start off as an ancient trading post named Tamaska. It would then have a chance to be called Singapore during the 14th century. It would also have a sick nickname, the Lion City. Why it would be named Singapore was because it was named after Singapura, which is a legend about a Hindu-Buddhist kingdom, which coincidentally named Singapura. Then in 1819, it would become a British trading post, frick the British, under the company of Stanford Raffle. It would cause a growth in Singapore's popularity due to it being a very popular and major trading post and a popular commercial center. Singapore would then be called a British Crown colony in 1826. It would be a key part in Britain's trade and military. Yet during World War II, Japanese soldiers would take over and renamed it Seonian II. This would last from 1942 to 1945. After World War II, the island would go back to being called Singapore and would not fall back under the British Crown. It would join up with Malaysia under the new Federation of Malaysia as its 15th state. Then in 1965, the Federation of Malaysia would see that they were very poor, because Singapore. That went a little something like this. What's up, Malaysia? What's happening,
You're too expensive, sweet!
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just like that, Singapore was on their own. And instead of being governed by somebody else under some new country, they decided to do their own thing and try out self-government.
Lions control the government. Singapore government system was a unitary parliament republic, which means there is one central government that powers everything and can delegate some powers of other subdivisions. They use a prime minister, a deputy minister, and a head minister. But also there is only one main political party in Singapore, and that is the People's Action Party. There's also a couple few ones sprinkled in, but they have done nothing, really. Most countries have big conflicts about religion and all the other stuff to influence them, but Singapore doesn't want that, and they don't have that. The government wants to have religious harmony, so they don't have religion play a big part. They don't look at religion. They bat another eye at it.
Hands. Singapore's economy is mainly from several massive oil refinery businesses, from the masters of ExxonMobil, Shell, and Singapore Refining Company, which has its name shortened to SRC. Singapore also has a huge manufacturing business that deals with a lot of electronics, chemicals, and wholesale trades. Singapore imports and exports stuff such as electrical equipment, mainly integrated circuits, chemicals, and gold. Singapore also has a GDP of over $500 billion, which is utterly fat stacks, if you ask me. Singapore has a pretty low unemployment rate of 2.9%. Pretty good if you ask me. Take notes, America. Singapore does, unfortunately, have virtually no natural resources. They can't really do anything themselves and is very reliant on trades. So it takes a couple screws from other big nations to ruin Singapore's economy. Watch out, China.
Look at all those cultures. Singapore is very diverse in their language they speak. Just like religion, Singapore has a very wide variety of it. Religion is a significant part also of Singapore, despite it not being part of the government. Which, in my opinion, is a very good reason, because if religion did influence the government in Singapore, Singapore probably wouldn't be a thing. It would be wiped off the face of the earth due to conflict, and would also be on fire. Religion is so diverse in Singapore that it is referred to as the religious melting pot. The main religion in Singapore, though, is Buddhism, with a lot of Christianity and Muslims, though, too. Singapore also practices a ton of tradition due to the diverse religions, like Christmas, Chinese New Year, Deepavali, Hararua Puza, and many more. Singapore also has a very big thing about respecting your elders and keeping public area clean.
Singapore has a rule that every citizen born after the year 1996, absolutely smashing year, by the way, may I add, must attend primary school, usually from the ages of 6 through 12. The adult literacy rate in Singapore is 97%, so they're pretty diddly darn smart. Two major universities of Singapore are the National University of Singapore and the Nanyang Technology University. Singapore's healthcare system is top ranked in the world. Those are some healthy little buggers. Their life expectancy of Singapore is very big, massive, gigantic, whopping 82 years.
Where the hell do you get that whopper from?
Mommy, look at the grass.
Honey, that's just water. Singapore's famous landmarks include the Thai Hong Keng Temple, the Sultan Mosque, and the Merlion Fountain. But if you want more natural landmarks, they have very low-lying lands with little to no sea elevation and a very tropical landscape. Singapore is so great that even UNESCO joined in and they made a World Heritage Site, including the Singapore Botanic Garden.
Singapore has some major technological advancements, including nationwide 5G coverage, significant AI advancements, and with all that technology, Singapore's internet usage rate is well above 73.2%. Singapore is primarily urban, and most of the people live in the busy cities, little access to nature, fancy buildings, a lot of technology, but there are still some people who manage to, live rural lives, very small amount, but they live in nature, much slower lives, kind of boring, but it's also a lot cheaper. Singapore has a ton of popular media, but it's primarily, dominated by YouTube and TikTok, like the rest of the world. But when they do watch like live television and, normal TV, it's very monitored and filtered by their government. Singapore also listens to a lot of music in English, like a lot of R music, like hip hop, R&B, top 40s music. Singapore's very popular sports include football, badminton, which is kind of unexpected, table tennis, and swimming are, very, very popular in Singapore. Due to the fact that Singapore is a combination of cultures, it makes sense that their media is just a cesspool of all other countries and cultures and stuff.
Singapore does have some struggles, though, such as political-wise, one party has so much more power than the rest, which causes conflict, and they are also receiving threats due to the Hamas conflict. Singapore luckily doesn't have a big poverty problem, but there is still a little bit scattered around in some areas. But also, Singapore doesn't have a good history with human rights with the cops, due to the cops trying to suppress and silence the people if they dared criticize their government. Singapore also been affected by sea levels and air pollution from their industries, and they also have poor waste management and water scarcity, which is kind of surprising considering the fact they're surrounded by ocean. Pause. Wait a minute. They're all surrounded by. Never mind. Actually, take that back. Ignore that, please. Singapore at least does have a good, stable relationship with neighboring. Oh my God!
Singapore has officially launched their new communicable disease agency, and they have also had recent movements about the death penalty on why they should ban it. And Singapore's also, struggled with some tensions with other countries due to high tariffs, and they run the risk of their, open economy being torn down. An example of this is that if China collapses and all their freaking mumbo jumbo production slows down, Singapore's businesses won't get what they need to keep running, and it will lead to the collapse of their economy. Remember that, kids.
Those are one of Aaron's last words. No, really, he doesn't show up again. Singapore has the world's first night zoo called Night Safari. It won Best Attraction in Singapore a whopping 13 times. Where did this hat come from? Bring the script. Hold on. Singapore also has a place named Singapore's Bukit Tama Nature Reserve and has a larger variety of tree species than the entirety of North America. Some big inventions Singapore has also made is the infrared camera, a USB flashlight, and also the people of Singapore also commonly wake up earlier than we do in the mornings around 7, and they mostly use public transport. They work 40 to 44 hours a week most commonly. They also focus a lot on food and having a very strong, big focus on having a big, strong work ethic. We lost the money. All right, we completely ran out of budget to film this part, so no epic editing. So this is the Singapore flag. It has 5 stars, half moon, and it's part red and part white, split evenly in half. And it's just like the real thing. It's just, yeah. Ignore that. This is Merlion. He's located in Merlion Park at Singapore. This part's supposed to be fish, and this part's supposed to be lion, because the fish part represents when they were in Temesque, or when they were called Temesque, and because of the trading, fish were very common because of the sea, and the lion represents how the nickname is Lion City, and it's a statue that shoots water. Hold on, I'll show a picture, real life picture. Poof! Ooh, look at that, cool editing. Yeah, this is the last section. On to the outro. Well, I was saying credit to Madison to making these things. Now on to the outro.
Sawyer, Singapore's pretty fantastic.
Say that again?
Dude, is that a Fantastic Four reference?
Yeah.
Sawyer, I knew I was like it, man. Bring it in, bro. Bring it in, brother.
Alright, this is another school project video I did, and if you are not from the school and you once again watch this just on your own willing, once again, thank you. This was a lot harder than the last one. Actually, maybe not. I don't know. But it seems the only way to keep a consistent schedule is to do school projects. So if you see an upload by me, more than likely a school project. If you see an upload by me that isn't a school project, that's kind of rare. But anyways, like and subscribe, because like every YouTuber says that.